study of the book of Revelation, we've come up to chapter 17 now. And chapter 17 and chapter 18 really go together. And both of those chapters are all about a city called Babylon. We talked about it a little bit earlier when it showed up just in one verse back in chapter 14, so we touched on it. But here are two whole chapters all about this future city called Babylon. Now, if you want to open up your Bible instead of going there, the first place we're going to read is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 50. So if you want to get ready and get your Bibles open, you can open up to Jeremiah, chapter 50. And as we begin to look at these chapters tonight, there's one idea mainly that I want to communicate. To you, and that is this. That this is what I get out of this passage here. That sometime in the future, it might be near, it might still be distant, in the country of Iraq, there's going to emerge a city which will have tremendous influence, and not for good, but for evil, over all the rest of the world. Now, the Bible calls this city Babylon in Revelation 17 and 18, and in other parts of the Bible also, which we're going to look at tonight. And we touched on this a couple Bible studies ago also, but although some, we try to interpret Revelation chapter 17 and chapter 18, ascribe a different name to this city, and the most traditional name is the city of Rome. People like to think that this prophecy is talking about the city of Rome. That all ties in with the idea of the revived Roman Empire and the European common market and the 10 kings and all that, which has been a traditional understanding of some of these scriptures. And it also dates way back to a time when Rome was a powerful city with great influence all around the world. So you can understand it. But Rome and the Catholic Church has really, as far as having influence and power, has really kind of declined over the decades and over the centuries. And I just don't see that being the fulfillment of a prophecy such as this anymore. And I don't know of any good other names that people have given to the city, although the scriptures call it Babylon, is Mecca, Saudi Arabia. I've heard that. Somebody thought this is talking about Mecca. New York City. Babylon is actually New York City. You hear a lot of things like that. I don't know of any good, profitable reason to call it anything other than what the Bible calls it, Babylon. And to assume, I don't know of any good, profitable reason to assume that it will be in any other geographical location other than where the ancient city of Babylon was in Old Testament times. And that is approximately 60 miles south of where the modern city of Baghdad is today, there in southern Iraq. The name of the town and the city that exists there right now is called Hilla. It's on the very site of the ancient Babylon. So, that's kind of something to look for. Give you something to look for. There's not a lot of practical things you can really pull out of the book of Revelation. It's all futuristic. It's all prophecy. There's some things we can keep an eye on. Keep your eye on the temple in Jerusalem. That's a hot spot in the world right now, Jerusalem, the Temple Mount itself. And I look for that temple to be rebuilt. I look for the city of Babylon to be rebuilt. That's just the way I see it, and something to keep an eye on. I've actually had my eye on this for a while, going all this as far as Babylon and what the scriptures say about Babylon. Going back to August of 1990, when the country of Iraq invaded Kuwait. You all remember that? And Patty and I were actually having a Bible study at our house at that time. And I remember there was some talk about people, in Christian circles and stuff, talking about prophecy is being fulfilled, because they went back to this prophecy in Jeremiah, where it talks about Babylon being destroyed. And you remember what's called Desert Storm, and there was this international coalition of nations coming against Iraq, and it sounds like what it's talking about in this prophecy. multiple nations coming against Babylon to destroy it. And, people were saying, this is what's happening now. Bible prophecy is being fulfilled. And I was teaching this Bible study, and I was thinking, I don't think what is happening in Iraq, this desert storm, is a fulfillment of Bible prophecy. So I started to look into it way back then, and concluded that no, that was not. This destruction of Babylon that the Bible talks about is still yet future. But that was a long time ago. And I'll tell you what, I'll give you two ways you can know that was a long time ago. Like I said, Patty and I were having a Bible study at our house at that time. We were only married for about 1 year at that time and had no children. That was a long time ago. And the other way you can know it was a long time ago is this handout that I gave you. I dug this out of my notes. I know I had saved some of my notes from way back then, and I found this handout and I made photocopies of it. But this original that I made photocopies out of from type on a typewriter. Could you tell? Yeah. So that also was a long time ago. So I, kind of had my eye on it for a while. So if you're in Jeremiah 50, there is a lengthy, detailed prophecy about Babylon in Jeremiah chapter 50. All of Jeremiah chapter 50, all of Jeremiah chapter 51, both lengthy chapters are all about the destruction of Babylon. We're not obviously going to read it all, but Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse 1 says, "The word that the Lord spake against Babylon and against the land of the Chaldeans by Jeremiah the prophet." Now, what do we know about Babylon from the Bible in the Old Testament time? You think of Babylon, one of the first things you think of is what? What's one of the first things somebody would think about when you think about Babylon? And what? Nebuchadnezzar the king. Hanging gardens. That's part of the ancient Babylon. And what did Babylon do to the Jewish people at one point? Was that it? Took them captive. Judah, the southern kingdom of Judah, they came and took the Jewish people captive, destroyed the city of Jerusalem and the temple, took captives, and Daniel was part of that, and Ezekiel and some of these others. And so when it was a world power under Nebuchadnezzar, it came and took Judah captive. This prophecy in Jeremiah is saying, you read through the whole thing, it's basically saying that though God used Babylon back in that time to bring judgment upon Judah and the Jewish people for their sins, God will also bring judgment upon Babylon in his time. And he will, in fact, utterly destroy Babylon. We're just going to grab a few verses in chapter 50 here. Look at verse 8. I'm just going to read 8 through 15. "Remove out of the midst of Babylon, and go forth out of the land of the Chaldeans, and be as the he-goats before the flocks. For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be of a mighty expert man, none shall return in vain. And Chaldea shall be a spoil. All that spoil her shall be satisfied, saith the Lord. Because ye were glad, because ye rejoiced, O ye destroyers of mine heritage." He's saying because when Babylon came and destroyed Jerusalem and Judah and took the Jews captive, they were happy about it, and they were rejoicing about it. But God's basically saying, your time is coming, right? "Because ye are grown fat as the heifer at grass, and bellow as bulls. Your mother shall be sore confounded, she that bare you shall be ashamed. Behold, the hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert. Because of the wrath of the Lord it shall not be inhabited. It shall be wholly desolate. Every one that goeth by Babylon shall be astonished and hiss at her plagues. Put yourselves in array against Babylon round about. All ye that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she hath sinned against the Lord. Shout against her round about, she hath given her hand. Her foundations are fallen, her walls are thrown down, for it is the vengeance of the Lord. Take vengeance upon her, as she hath done, do unto her. So, and on it goes throughout this chapter and the next chapter. God is going to destroy this city called Babylon. This prophecy has not been fulfilled yet. I don't believe. I don't see anywhere in history where it was fulfilled. It is actually, I believe, a parallel passage to Revelation 17 and 18. And that's what this handout is about. There's some, you all know what I mean when I say a parallel passage? Anybody know what a parallel passage is in the Bible? Sometimes you just use these terms and assume that everybody knows, but a parallel passage is two parallel passages are two different passages in the Bible which are talking about the exact same event. And I don't think it necessarily applies to something that's just has the same theme or talking about the same type of thing, but talking about the exact same thing. They're very common in the Gospels, right? Because 4 different books all talking about the life of Christ. So a lot of the events, the miracles, and the teachings of Jesus are found in more than one Gospel. So that would be a parallel passage. It's talking about the exact same thing, the exact same event, but you always get a little different perspective on it from a different book, a different author. But it's talking about the same thing. I believe this whole big prophecy in Jeremiah is a parallel passage talking about the same destruction of Babylon as Revelation 17 and 18. And some of the wording, and that's why I got this handout, much of the wording is almost identical. So if you just look at your handout and compare Jeremiah, I think that's 50, verse 7. It's got a whole bunch to it. But it says, Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. And in Revelation 17:4, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Jeremiah 51:7, the nations have drunk of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. Revelation 18:3, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Jeremiah, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Revelation, Babylon the great is fallen, is fallen. Jeremiah, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven and is lifted up even to the skies. Revelation, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. The terminology is so similar that they got to be talking about the same thing. Jeremiah 51:13, O thou that dwellest upon many waters. Revelation 17:1, the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Jeremiah 51, my people, go ye out of the midst of her. Revelation 18, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins. Jeremiah 50, recompense her according to her work, according to all that she hath done, do unto her. Revelation, reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. And at the end, both of these prophecies in Jeremiah 51, it says, and it shall be, when thou hast made an end of reading this book, that thou shalt bind a stone to it, and cast it into the midst of the Euphrates, and thou shalt say, thus shall Babylon sink, and shall not rise from the evil that I will bring upon her. And in Revelation, and a mighty angel took a stone like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. So, I mean, just identical phraseology and wording here. I think it's very safe to say they're parallel passages. They're talking about the same thing. And so, the main point I think that I want to make out of that is that when it says Babylon, it's talking about Babylon. In Jeremiah, nobody ever claims that Jeremiah the prophet is talking about Rome in this prophecy, right? Or Mecca, or New York City, or anything like that. It is obvious that he's talking about the same city which took Judah captive in the Old Testament, Babylon, the city that Nebuchadnezzar ruled over. There's no question about that. But it's a parallel passage. But when we get to the book of Revelation, all of a sudden it's like, no, we can't be talking about Babylon. It must be something mystical or symbolic. It must be metaphoric or allegorical or something. It couldn't possibly. Why? Why? Just because we're in the book of Revelation, does everything else have to be, allegorical or mystical? It's the same. I believe it's the same prophecy, and it's Babylon. And why not just accept that? And I wanted to share this idea, because it's not the most popular interpretation of this, the idea that the actual city of Babylon in modern-day Iraq is going to be rebuilt. But I want to show this to you to show that this is not just a totally obscure idea that has no connection with reality or with what's going on in the world today. This is when Saddam Hussein was ruling Iraq, he tried real hard to rebuild the city of Babylon. It was happening. I got a few newspaper articles back from that same time when we were having those Bible studies, and I was looking at this. And this is from October of 1990, New York Times, I believe. It says, under President Saddam Hussein, one of the ancient world's most legendary cities has begun to rise again. More than an archaeological venture, the new Babylon is self-consciously dedicated to the idea that Nebuchadnezzar has a successor in Mr. Hussein. I mean, that's what Saddam Hussein wanted to do. He wanted to make himself like the present-day Nebuchadnezzar. Another one from the Washington Post. In 1987, in the middle of the war with Iran and other urgent preoccupations, Saddam invested much money, time, and energy in rebuilding the royal palace in Babylon and other preparations connected with the celebration of the 2500th anniversary of Nebuchadnezzar. This one for the New York Times. For the last 3 years, over 1,000 laborers imported from the Sudan, Iraqi men were busy fighting Iran at the time, have worked 7 days a week through wet winters and scorching summers to rebuild what archaeologists call King Nebuchadnezzar's southern palace, a vast complex of some 500 rooms and the reputed site of the legendary Hanging Gardens of Babylon. And then Billy Graham even chimed in on this way back at this time, back in the early 1990s. Billy Graham said, history has gone full cycle, and we are coming back to these lands, Mr. Graham said during a recent crusade. This is not another Korea. It is not another Vietnam. It is something far more sinister and more difficult. So, the spirit of rebuilding. I mean, Satan is the god of this world, and he has his plans and his things, so I'm just saying it's not an obscure thing that it's just I concocted out of my head. There's a spirit out there, that wants this place rebuilt. If it weren't for the Gulf War, I mean, there's no telling how far Saddam Hussein would have gotten. In fact, that's one thing I concluded back there when I was studying that, because people were saying this is a fulfillment of prophecy, and I was saying, actually, the Gulf War did more to postpone the fulfillment of prophecy than anything else at that time. And, since then, that's 24 years ago. I haven't heard anything new. That I know of, there's no new, efforts underway to do it, but it's there, and I believe it's still going to happen sometime in the future. Now, who wants to read one verse? Just get ready. Not right immediately, but in a few minutes. Wouldn't mind just reading one verse. Get ready to read 1 Peter 5:13. I'm going to get ready to read 1 Peter 5:13, and the rest of us can turn to the prophet Isaiah chapter 13. Isaiah chapter 13 is another, I believe, parallel passage talking about the destruction of Babylon. And again, I think what we're going to see here, it's a prophecy that has not been fulfilled yet. See, Babylon was a world empire, right? A world power under Nebuchadnezzar, and then a few other kings. But it was not, and it was taken over, Medes and Persians. But it was never destroyed the way that these prophecies are talking about. You know, it kind of it faded out of prominence. You know, it ceased to become, and another world empire took over. But the city was never destroyed the way that these prophecies talk about. Isaiah 13, all of Isaiah 13 is about the destruction of Babylon. And just to get the setting of the when this prophecy is going to be fulfilled, there's a couple references here to the day of the Lord. Look at verse 6. Howl ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. And verse 9, behold, the day of the Lord cometh, cruel, with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate. He shall destroy. This, to me, that's all references to end times, the day of the Lord. And things we're reading about in the book of Revelation, where God is going to intervene, that the world has gone on long enough. And the day of the Lord, God is going to make his presence known. And verse 10, also in Isaiah 13, for the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. Does that sound familiar? That should sound familiar. There's identical wording in the book of Revelation, Matthew 24 also. It's all talking about future end of the end times events. And so I'm just saying that what Isaiah is talking about here in Revelation 13 is still yet future. This has never happened before, that the sun has been darkened and so on and so forth. So I'm just saying that it's yet in the future. Isaiah 13:17. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver. As for gold, they shall not delight in it. Their bows also shall dash the young men. First, I really want to, well, I'll just keep reading. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. See, that never happened before. The city faded away, but it was never destroyed like that. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. It shall not be inhabited. Who's got 1 Peter 5:13? Mary?
She who is in Babylon, chosen together with you, sends you her greetings, and so does my son Mark.
Thank you, Alice. So Peter was writing from Babylon in New Testament times. So obviously the city is still there, it's still inhabited. Point again just being that this prophecy has not been fulfilled yet, as the way it is described. And then verse 20. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. That's how the King James describes it. I don't know what this is other than demons. Basically, demons just going to be possessed by demons, which is identical to what Revelation 18:22 says. After the city is destroyed, the voice of harpers, musicians, pipers, trumpeters shall be heard no more. No craftsmen of whatsoever. I write down 18:2. And he cried mightily, with a strong voice, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. They're identical. It's the same prophecies. It's just there's nobody's going to live there anymore except for demons will inhabit the place. That's all. So, again, these prophecies from the Old Testament, they're the same as Revelation. It is yet future. It has not happened yet. The destruction of Babylon described in Isaiah 13 and Jeremiah 50 and 51 was never fulfilled in Old Testament times. It is the same as Revelation 17 and 18. It was still future, obviously, when Revelation was written, and we certainly haven't seen anything since that time that would fulfill this prophecy. So it's still future, and yet the city of Babylon isn't there today. So, conclusion, it must be rebuilt. And so that's what I believe is going to happen. It's going to be rebuilt, and then God is going to destroy it. And when we see, efforts have already been underway to do just that very thing. Now, This is an interesting prophecy, again from the Old Testament. Turn to Zechariah chapter 5, if you will. Zechariah chapter 5. This is a Bible study tonight, folks. And, I don't apologize. We're just going to look at the scriptures. Zechariah, Jeremiah, Isaiah. It's all part of the Bible. I hope you read it often. But some of the stuff in a book like Zechariah we're just not too familiar with. But Zechariah chapter 5 and verses 5 through 11. And I think this is kind of hard to pinpoint, but I think it's talking about the same thing. I could be wrong on this one, but let's just read this. Zechariah 5 through 11. Then the angel that talked with me went forth and said unto me, Lift up now thine eyes, and see what is this that goeth forth. And I said, What is it? And he said, This is an ephah that goeth forth. He said, Moreover, this is their resemblance through all the earth. And behold, there was lifted up a talent of lead, and this is a woman that sitteth in the midst of the ephah. And he said, This is wickedness. And he cast it into the midst of the ephah, and he cast the weight of lead upon the mouth thereof. So there's this woman who represents just wickedness. He puts her in this some kind of container, I think, and puts a seal, a cover on it. And then he says in verse 9, Then lifted I up mine eyes and looked, and behold, there came out two women, and the wind was in their wings, for they had wings like the wings of a stork, and they lifted up the ephah between the earth and the heaven. Then said I to the angel that talked with me, Whither do these bear the ephah? They got this wickedness bottled up in this some kind of container, whatever it is. It's a woman, it's wickedness, and they're taking it somewhere. And he says, Where are you going with this? And he said unto me, To build it a house in the land of Shinar, and it shall be established and set there upon her own base. You all know what the land of Shinar is, right? The original Tower of Babel, built there, is Babel. It's the same place. So this is where they're going to build a house for this wickedness. It shall be established and set there upon her own base. And I think that leads perfectly into Revelation 17 and verse 1, if you want to turn there. I'm just having more time than I thought I would have tonight. But I think we're just going to wrap it up pretty quick. But, it's interesting that, and you talk about symbolism and stuff in Zechariah, and there's a lot of symbolism there. And but there's this woman, it's not a real woman, it's symbolism. She represents wickedness, but it's a woman that they're using to represent this wickedness and brings it to the land of Shinar, to Babylon, to build it a house and set it upon its own base. And look at Revelation 17:1 then. And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, talked with me, saying, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So it's a woman. King James Bible even calls her a whore, a very wicked and immoral woman. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And it goes on there.